Hello, I'm Michelle.
And I'm Laura, and this is the Pair Entrepreneurs Club podcast, a weekly show to help you navigate the demands of being a working parent. We will share lots of practical ideas, hints and tips, and our own and others' experiences with juggling work, family, health and finances. Above all, we want to help you find your purpose, define your identity, and banish any confidence gremlins that might be holding you back from the life you dream of. No matter whether you have children or not, there will be something here for you. Let's get started. So with me today, I have Will Polston. I'm really excited for this interview today, and thank you so much for joining me. So for anyone who doesn't know Will Polston, he is a best-selling author, entrepreneur, and one of the UK's leading business strategists and performance coaches. So I have so many questions for you, but I'll let you start, Will, by just introducing a little bit about yourself and what you do, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Laura, thank you very much for having me. And I think the introduction you just gave kind of summarizes it. But yeah, in a nutshell, everything that I do revolves around my mission, which is to empower people to transform excuses into results and live a life that they love.
I love that. And I was listening to your TEDx talk, and one, congratulations on doing that. And you told a really powerful story in there. And I just wonder if you just kind of just tell our listeners a little bit about how you came to be a coach and your story and what that meant to you, what your personal drivers are.
Yeah, sure. So the backstory is that I grew up with the belief that money equaled happiness. So I went on a tangent to make as much money as I could as early as I could, become quite good at that. And where that really came about was growing up with this belief that money equaled happiness. So I remember my dad hated his job. So he used to leave the house at 5 o'clock in the morning, get home at 7, 8 o'clock at night, and he'd bring the stress and the frustration of work home with him. And there was so much of that. It was to the point where I could remember growing up, I could physically feel the tension. I mean, I don't know if you or any of the listeners can resonate with this. When someone's so stressed, you can feel this like kind of tension in and around them. And anyway, long story short, one day I come home from school and my dad had quit his job to set up a business with one of my uncles. And I've got two very wealthy uncles. One's a billionaire, the other one's a multimillionaire. And Dad always used to say they just got lucky. That was his excuse. They just got lucky. And yeah, he was going to set up this business, but after a couple of months, I realized that kind of that wasn't going to be happening, and I started noticing certain things. And what I realized was that my dad, he wasn't leaving the house and sleeping in separate rooms. My mum, curtains shut all day, and basically what we would look back now and say, well, he was depressed. That was kind of how we would view it. But all I did was kind of connect the dots, because I looked at Uncle Mark. He was a billionaire. He was really happy. Uncle Steve, he was a multimillionaire. He was really happy. There was Dad when he worked in London. Yeah, he was stressed and frustrated, but at least he was making money. And then there's now he's not making money. So for me, it was obvious money equaled happiness. So I went off on that tangent, as I said before, and become quite good at that. At 18, I stumbled across personal development. And the more personal development I did, the more money I made. And that carried on for some years. And then I had this big realization 10 years ago this year, actually, where I call it my lightning moment. And I cried my eyes out for about 15 minutes, because in that moment, I realized that my real driver was nothing to do with money. It was never really about money. What it was really about was my dad, and how my dad hadn't achieved certain things he was capable of, and the impact that had on him and my mum and me and my family and a whole host of other people. And I vowed in that moment, I don't want anyone else to go through the suffering that he went through and we went through. From that moment on, I've just been obsessed with anything to do with human awareness, human potential, human behavior. And yeah, that's kind of the backstory, really.
Yeah, I mean, I find that so moving, and I completely relate to that, where people, you can feel the tension that's being given off by other people when they're stressed and anxious. I was really interested as well because you have pictures on your website of Anthony Robbins. My dad actually went on a Tony Robbins course when I was 9, and it's kind of one of the key moments of my life that I remember the transition, seeing my dad, who was pretty broken in business at that point, and how he transformed his life and my life really from going on that course. And I'm interested to know your perspective on Tony Robbins and how that's transformed what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I said 10 years ago I had that big realization. That was at one of Tony's events. So it was at Tony's event that I had the big realization, and it acted as that catalyst to create that change for me. So yeah, it's been huge, and he's been a big inspiration for so many reasons. But yeah, that's that specific moment, which I remember very vividly, was where he used the past, so his experience, to be the catalyst for the future, rather than being a victim of his past. He was able to make a conscious decision and change his future as a result of that, because the past doesn't equal the future unless you live there. So whatever's happened, you can change. And whilst there's nothing in life that we can go back and change anything from the past, what we can do is change the meaning that we give it, and therefore that then can switch it from being a destructive fuel to a constructive fuel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always kind of remembered those lessons that my dad learned on that course. And I actually recorded a podcast not that long ago about the drama triangle, and saying that, there are so many people who fall into that victim state. And exactly as you said, like with your dad, it's the excuses that people make. And I think it can sometimes be a controversial topic. But for me, it's something I passionately believe in that you have a choice on whether you do something or you don't, and whether you're a victim or you're not.
Yeah, I think it gets difficult for people when I think they don't truly understand the concept of what it's about. So this is for me, like you take the drama triangle, for example, or and people saying, well, I'm the victim, and people can get caught in this vicious circle of being the victim. It's not about acknowledging that other people haven't done certain things, but it is about taking responsibility. So I talk in my book about the difference between fault and responsibility. Something cannot be your fault, but it is your responsibility. And anything that happens in our life is always our responsibility, because it's our ability to respond to any given set of circumstances or events that's what really makes the difference. So it's not about what's happened, but it's about how we think about it and what we do about it moving forward.
Yeah, yeah. And you've touched on it there, and I wanted to ask you about your book, because I know you just had that released this year. So it's North Star Thinking, Master Your Mindset and Live a Life You Love.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so I've not had a chance to read it yet, but it is on my top list of books to read. I've got a stack behind me, as you can probably see. But yeah, can you sort of tell us a little bit about what's in that book? And we'll put a link to it for listeners, obviously.
Yeah, so the main concept of it, North Star Thinking, is about getting people to basically live a life they love. And one of the core principles in the book is about having a goal in life that's so big that you actually never achieve. So you detach from the ideal of having achieved it, and you focus on the process instead. So essentially it becomes a mission in life that you're working on, a mission that you never actually fulfill, because then you're not constantly feeling unfulfilled whilst you're striving towards this goal, or when you do get there, you don't feel like you need to set another one straight away. And that's really the essence of what it's about. But we expand on quite a number of different topics. So everything from how to master your time, to how to cultivate an attitude of gratitude, how to create habits that stick, which are just four of the kind of fundamentals that I think for people that want to go and do that. Obviously, they've got to know where they're going. They've got to know how they're going to achieve it. So that for me falls under kind of the intelligent action piece. There's no point in just taking action for action's sake. Nobody wants to be a hamster in a hamster wheel, just running really fast and not going anywhere. But then it's ensuring that happens by having the appropriate accountability, or introducing the appropriate habits and routines to ensure that things get done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me as well, that's where coaching comes in, because that's kind of its forte, of holding people to be accountable and holding a mirror up to someone. So where you can't always see it yourself, and I'm a big advocate of even coaches should have coaches, because you just can't see the wood for the trees sometimes. So I know you have a few programs, and how could someone work with you, and what could they benefit from some of those?
So regardless of the programs that we offer, essentially everything is taking people along the same to get to the same outcome. So we want people living a life that they love. We want people having absolute clarity, making sure they're taking intelligent action, having that active accountability. So the programs really depend on kind of where people are at in their journey, as to what's going to be best suited for them. But the outcome is the same for everybody. That's kind of really where we're working towards. So if people are experiencing what I call the rift symptoms, so if they're stressed, they're overwhelmed, they're frustrated, they're depressed, they're anxious, they're unfulfilled, then we can very, very quickly and efficiently get them mastering their mindset, their productivity and efficiency to be making significant progress personally, professionally and financially. That's kind of really what we're helping people to do. And yeah, so there's a few different ways, from online programs to in-person programs to one-on-one. There's a real range, but that is more dependent on kind of where people are at in their journey, as to what would be best suited for them.
Yeah. What would you say was one of the kind of the biggest takeaways that you've had throughout your career, or the biggest lesson you've learned in what you do?
Wow, big question. So one of them that sits with me is there's no such thing as lack of resources, just the lack of resourcefulness. So many people, I do my absolute best to never use the word can't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for anything. Yeah, I can't do that. It's always because if I won't do it, or and that is just an example of kind of looking at things in those ways. So we want to progress and we want to move forward, and yeah, that's really one of the many things. But there have been so many. Yeah, I really struggle to pick one. I suppose a big one is the whole concept of the North Star thinking. That for me was something that it took me a lot of years to realize, because I was caught in what I call when then syndrome. When I achieve this goal, then I'll be happy. When I achieve that, then I'll be all right. When I get this one, then I'll be complete. Whatever that is. But really having that peace and focusing on the fulfillment side of things rather than the achievement side of things.
Yeah.
That's, I think, is a big one.
Yeah, it's huge. Just to go back to what you said about can't then as well, that for me, my dad always used to say to me, there's no such word as can't. And it was when I was a
Mm,
teenager, I'd be like, yeah, but dad, there is. There is a word
mm,
can't. And I never really understood it until I was ready to. And I think
mm.
that's a big part of learning as well, is that actually some people are not quite ready yet. Would you agree with that?
Completely. I mean, a perfect example of this is reading a book. You've got a stack of books behind you. You could read any one of those books this month
Mm.
and read the same book a year from now, and it feel like a different book, because where you're at that point is different. So different messages stand out to you. Sometimes you even need to hear the same message just from a different messenger. There's lots of people that say the same thing, but they've just said it in a slightly different way. So it's not even just the timing of what you hear. It can actually be the way that the same thing is said, albeit in a slightly different way, can make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And particularly when you apply that to the business aspect as well. And there are a lot of NLP principles that fit into how to do business. But in your messaging, it's about making sure that you say those messages in slightly different ways over and over again, because they just won't resonate until certain moments in people's lives.
Mm, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Do you find that when you're coaching people as well, that if they're coming up against resistance, what's the kind of best strategy to get around that, or to get them to to see a different perspective? Do you have?
So they're coming up against resistance with the coaching itself, or coming up
Yeah.
against resistance in their life somewhere?
Well, both. I think I've come across people who said, "Oh, I don't really like coaching. I don't believe in coaching." And I think it's quite an interesting um, perception from them, really, because they've probably had examples where, I mean, from my HR background, I will have line managers who have tried to coach someone when actually they needed an answer in that moment and wanted a mentor rather than a coach. So it's about maybe picking the right time and knowing when to coach. But if people have had a negative experience, that can sometimes create some resistance.
Absolutely, and not all coaching is created equal. Not all coaches are created equal. I think that there's a lot of people that like coaching such a broad term, and there are a lot of people that may think that they've been coached, but actually they were never being coached. There's an awful lot of people that think coaching is somebody telling them what to do, and that absolutely isn't coaching. So I think a lot of people can find that they have struggled with it. I mean, for me, coaching really is just a form of communication. That's all it is. So if we break coaching down, coaching is a form of communication, unlike just like any other form of communication. It's not as simple as just asking questions, which is what a lot of other people think coaching is. There's a whole multitude of different components that are built into a coaching conversation. And in fact, so I train with an organisation that's sort of part of the International Coaching Federation, and they talk about the 10 core competencies. And one of the 10 core competencies of coaching is direct communication, which is just telling people the answer sometimes. So it's neither all one or all other. I think that sometimes it's a little bit like somebody saying, "Yeah, I really don't like pizza. I just don't like pizza. Pizza doesn't work for me." But they've only ever tried one pizza, and it was maybe it was the cold leftover pizza from the night before. Maybe it was a thick pan pizza, but what they haven't tried is a thin pan pizza. Maybe it was a meat feast, but what they'd really like would be a vegetarian pizza. Do you know what I mean? Like there's lots of different ways of looking at it, and like most things in life, we do generally. If we go, oh no, we don't like that. Well, how many times have we tested it? I know myself in the past, there's been times when that doesn't work. I've tried that. When did you try it? 3 years ago. Have you tried it again since? No, it won't work though. Okay, give it a go. Oh yeah, it worked. So there's lots of different ways of looking at different things.
Yeah, I mean, I have this with my son. So this is one of the biggest challenges for me. He's 7. He used to be really good at trying things, eating most foods. And now he's got to an age where he's decided he doesn't like things. So even last night, we gave him, it was like chili. We said, it's just like a beef burger, but it's just in a different format. And he sets it in his head that I don't like this. Trying to break down those barriers of, well, let's just try it and see, because he's really bought those kind of rigid beliefs that is quite hard to chip away at. I mean, would you have any advice for dealing with that, for example?
In that specific scenario?
Yeah, I think children, certainly with my son, I find it difficult because he is, they're not as, well, as some adults as well aren't as rational. But it is that challenging those beliefs when they're so stuck in their ways of, I don't want to try new things. It's being able to convince someone or, get them to see things differently.
Yeah. One of the things, whether it's children or adults or anything else, is every single one of us have a completely unique set of values. So, if you look at your finger, that fingerprint that you have, Laura, is completely unique to you. No other person on the planet has your fingerprint, and nobody else on the planet has your completely unique set of values. Now, at any age, it's amazing how easily we can be influenced by others if we think it's going to be about. So, for example, if you knew, and I'm not suggesting that you lie, because I'm not saying that either, but if you knew that something was the case, I don't know, let's say it was pasta, right? And you've got a child that doesn't like pasta, but what they do really like are footballers, and their favourite footballer is Messi, and if there was a way of finding a photo of Messi or a video of Messi eating pasta, because what their absolute dream is they want to become a professional footballer when they're older, just as an example, then you can make that association in a different way. So then it's being intrinsically driven rather than extrinsically driven. It's not, well, I want you to eat it. It's what can you say that makes them realise they want to eat it? I mean, I think the idea that your burger that you said is was quite a good idea. Obviously, didn't work maybe on that occasion, but
Yeah.
it's if we often think about it from what can we, because every single one of us have got internal drivers and internal motivators. So if we can then align it with what they want, then we're going to be far more likely to get the outcome that we want.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, I think that is so powerful. And you know, a sad fact of the kind of technology, I suppose, is that my son quite likes watching YouTube and Minecraft videos and all these, you know, Americanized yeah, the videos of people playing games and things. And we kind of said, oh, you know, in America they eat lots of this. So the people that you watch on TV, you know, they eat this. It's like, oh, okay, I'll try it. Which was a step forward. So exactly what you were saying just then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. I want to ask you as well about on your website you're pictured with Mo Gawdat. And now I'm a big fan of Mo Gawdat. So what was working with him like?
I first read one of Mo's books, Sold for Happy, 5 or 6 years ago, and I just loved it. I think Mo's how if you've, for those that haven't listened to Mo's podcast, Slow Mo, and sort of any have seen any of Mo's video, Mo in real life is exactly how you think he's going to be. And he's just an incredible guy. He's kind, he's caring, he's like, if you were to cut the guy in half, he would just bleed love, you know. So yeah, he's a really great guy. And yeah, I've got a lot of time for Mo and what he stands for and what he's trying to do.
Yeah. I remember listening to, I think he was being interviewed on Stephen Bartlett's podcast. And I was listening to it in the car. I was driving home, and I remember I actually had to pull the car over because I was physically streaming when he was talking about his experience with his son and everything that, yeah. And yeah, for anyone out there who hasn't listened to Mo Gawdat's story, then yeah, I encourage you to do so, because it's completely inspirational. And I think it's very hard to actually turn that into something that he now wants to spread happiness, you know, and he's seen that as a blessing in his life, which is just incredible. So is there anyone else that's kind of been a key figure in your career, or anyone that you would aspire to meet now?
Aspire to meet, there's nobody that particularly stands out, that, because I've been very fortunate that I've met a lot of the people that I really kind of always wanted to, but there are dozens of people that have had an impact on my life. So I used to do an exercise, albeit I haven't done it for some time now, and I'd write out a list of people that influence me, I admire and trust. And on that list, I would put anybody that I look up to in some form or another. So I may not look up to them because of every area of life, but I look up to them because of how they interact in their family life, how they interact in business, maybe their wealth, maybe their relationship, whatever it would be. And then what I would do is I would have this long list of people, and then I would look to learn from them at least once every 90 days. So when I say learn from them, that might be if I knew them personally, I would go and meet them for a coffee or whatever. It might be I might listen to their podcast, I might watch them on YouTube. There'll be people that are dead, but I would be watching old videos of theirs or listening to their things. So I would have that, and they've, like I say, literally dozens of people that have had an impact on me in some form or another, which I'm extremely grateful for. And I constantly surround myself with those people, either be it physically surround myself with them or virtually, because I've literally got them in my ears, I'm watching them on videos, I'm reading their books, whatever it will be. And yeah, there's so many, but I think that there's a famous a famous quote. Oh my God, who was it? Isaac Newton quote, which is, "If I've seen further, it's because I've stood on the shoulders of giants." And I think that, you know, I'm constantly learning, constantly surrounding myself by great people, and that's only a result of the work that I've put in. and by learning and being around those people and constantly trying to grow every day, I'm looking to grow. And it's funny, I said this on a podcast interview the other day, is that I have on Facebook, I have something called Facebook memories pop up. I don't know if you have that, where you see stuff from you. And some of these things I look at from 2-3 years ago, I just cringe, think, oh my God, what was I thinking? What was I doing? But that for me is a sign of growth, is that I'm seeing that that's progressing and seeing that those things are moving. So yeah, that's where it's at.
I love that as a tip as well, because for me, one of my big struggles when I started the business was getting out there on the media and social media. So filming videos, even just doing this podcast, and I'm sure I'll look back in a few years' time and go, oh my goodness. But it is that once you've done it, you think, I look back to even 6 months ago and things change and you progress, and it's constantly pushing yourself outside of that comfort zone. I play tennis as well, and I think the only way I improve is to play people that are better than me, and up in your game. And I think that's the same with business circles as well. It's just being inspired and learning from people that have been there and done it and are currently better.
Without a doubt, with the specific focus on the improvement rather than how far you've got to go. Right, so rather than going, but if you're playing tennis, rather than so, but I've still not beat the team captain, or I've still not won that thing. But if you go, but a year ago you were playing people that are 3 divisions below you now, or whatever. So it's really important to look back at where you've come from, rather than whilst I'm all for looking forward, if we're constant, and that's the whole beauty of the North Star. If you can kind of accept, well, I'm never going to achieve this, but you can always use the reference point of where you've been, as opposed to I'm still X far away from where I want to be.
Yeah. And I talk about this a lot with clients in terms of success stacking. Because I think it's so easy to go, oh, well, this has gone wrong, that's gone wrong, and focus on the negatives, because we're naturally programmed to do that. But to actually start success stacking and saying, oh yeah, this is where I've improved, this has gone well, and looking back over that past journey, it's amazing the little gems that we actually find, and from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, going back and do it. I call it a boast list. So, it sounds very similar, but the word boast, well, most of us think of being boastful. We think of being arrogant and being up ourselves, but the etymology of the word boast means to inflate. So in the same way you would inflate your tires, if you overinflate your tires, it's going to burst, right? Which is to be arrogant and really boastful in the way that a lot of people think about it. But equally, what's equally as damaging as overinflating your tires is underinflating your tires. So if you haven't pumped yourself up enough and you're putting yourself down because you've not acknowledged your wins or your successes, as you've just said there, then that can be equally as damaging. So it's about that Goldilocks zone of you want to have the appropriate optimum amount of acknowledgement of where you are and what you've done, so that you're not doing yourself a disservice at either end of the spectrum.
Yeah, I think that's a big realization, and part of that is hand in hand with I always used to worry about what people would think. With the social media as it is, we're constantly being judged. And it's actually coming to an appreciation of, well, there are some people who are going to like me. There are some people who will never like me. And I'm okay with that. And stop being critical of yourself and comparing yourself to others all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for that, Will. It's so insightful. Is there anything else that you would think, as somebody maybe starting a new business or wanting to develop their career and looking for a career change, or just even go for promotions within work? Is there anything that you would give as a kind of top tip, or where to start with things?
There's lots of things I could talk about, but one tool that would be relevant for all of those different types of people that you've said, whether it's people that are starting a business, whether it's people that are wanting to change career, progress in their career, is creating what I call the ultimate peer group. So this is essentially 3 different groups of people that are a few steps ahead of you, people that are what we call mentors, people that are around the kind of same stage that you are, which are peers, and then people that are a few steps behind you, which is mentees. So the mentors are people that are a few steps ahead of you that you could learn and maybe save making the mistakes, so that you're basically learning from their mistakes so you don't have to make them for yourself. The peers are people that are at your level that have maybe got more sort of on the ground accurate knowledge of what you can be doing that's really going to work, but equally acts as a bit of healthy competition. And then you've got your mentees, people that you feel that you can give a bit back to, which kind of completes the circle from the people that you've taken the information from, that your mentors. So you can be giving back, and you know that, because wherever you're at in your journey, you know, there's somebody that is where you were. You know, there might be somebody today, Laura, that is thinking, sat there, oh, I'd love to start a podcast, but I've no idea where to start. Or I'd love to look at starting a coach, but I've no idea what all this. Oh, I'd love to think about getting into HR. I've got no idea where to start. Every single one of us have got information that we take for granted, that we have an ability just by sharing our own opinions and experiences can be useful for people. So that's a little tool. And some people have people, but they only have 1 or 2 of the 3. They haven't necessarily got all 3. So if you can be looking at all 3, then that creates, like I say, what I call the ultimate peer group, that can help for sure.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, definitely a good, great takeaway there. So yeah, thank you.
My
and
pleasure.
Then just finally, we always ask for a book recommendation. Obviously, North Star Thinking is one of the top ones. But aside from that, is there another one that you would recommend for our listeners?
So many. Why don't we say, we've already mentioned Soul for Happy, which is Mo's book. Obviously, my book we've touched on. Another book that I just love is called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. It's a really quick read. I mean, on audiobook, I think the whole book's 90 minutes, if that. So on like double time speed, you can do it in 45 minutes. But it's a really, really thin book, but just full of wisdom. So yeah, As a Man Thinketh is a great book.
Wow, okay. I've just made a note of that one. And like I say, we'll put some notes in the show chat. So I know your book is available on Amazon, and yeah, we'll put a link to that as well. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today, Will. It's been really, really interesting, and I'm sure our listeners will gain a lot from what you've said. So yeah, thank you once again.
My pleasure. Well, thanks for having me, Laura, and I hope everybody has enjoyed listening.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. We rely heavily on word of mouth, so if you found value in this episode, please hit subscribe and share it with family and friends. If you'd like to find out a bit more about us, you can find us on our Facebook group, Pair Entrepreneurs Club, or alternatively on Instagram, PairEntrepreneurs_club. We hope you have a great week, and we look forward to talking to you next time.